and welcome to the Bad Movie Reviews podcast. Not exactly sure what episode it was. I kind of choked up there, but hosted by myself, Ben, and we've got Daniel. We'll be reviewing a few movies this week. I guess it's a bit of a horror special. There's covering the horror film of the year, Bros. No, I'm kidding. We're covering Pearl, which is a prequel to the T West film X, which came out earlier this year, which I think we both kind of really enjoyed.
Yeah, it was good.
And an Australian film called Sissy, and then I'll be touching on a few films that I've seen as well, which Daniel missed. But we'll jump into movie news. There's actually a fair bit here to unpack. First of all, starting off with the Venom films, which I've not really been a huge fan of. Callie Marvel, who wrote the first two films, is going to direct the third. So she's not directed any movie before. To give you an idea of what movies she's written all Venom movies. Saving Mr. Banks, which I actually enjoyed. It was the Tom Hanks one where he plays Walt Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't it? It was
a great film.
Good family friendly. 50 Shades of Grey, which is a masterpiece as well. Yeah. So gives you an idea of the kind of quality she's written. But what are your thoughts? I think Tom Hardy's actually co-writing it as well, which is a bit weird because...
Look, I'm all for it. I feel like writers have their own vision on certain things, and sometimes it doesn't always get directed or projected in a certain way. And I feel like this might be at least a good opportunity for someone with their vision that they've had probably for 2 whole movies now or years to put some of that into play. Yeah.
The only risky thing is obviously you've not directed a film before, and you're probably given, it's not a small movie, let's be real, you're probably given a $70+ million budget.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of risk involved, but it could play off because, as you said, it's their vision. A lot of writers, a lot of the best directors write all their stuff. You look at Tarantino, Nolan. Nolan obviously co-writes, like Damien Chazelle, who's one of my favorites. James, a lot of them will write their stuff. So it's interesting, but I'm not necessarily that keen. I thought the last 2 were pretty... First one was kind of on the nose, meta, a little bit kind of funny. Second one was...
I feel like they're not great movies. They're just enjoyable, but, well, give her a chance, I guess, see what happens.
Yeah, I would agree. This one I'm actually really keen on. So Henry Cavill and Isa Gonzalez. Now, they're going to lead a Guy Ritchie World War II action spy pick called the Ministry of the Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is apparently the clan or the group that Christopher Lee, who plays Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, was part of in real life. So the rumor is it's going to be a Christopher Lee biopic.
Oh, cool.
Which I don't know if you've read up on him. He was like an actual war survivor, and like when Peter Jackson was directing him in Lord of the Rings, he was like, you need to make this noise when you're getting stabbed. And he's apparently turned around. He's like, Peter, have you ever heard a man getting stabbed? It's like this. Like apparently, like he was like a genuine, obviously played like Dracula, but like he was a World War veteran, and like Henry Cavill playing him.
Wow. Can you imagine someone saying that to you like mid-acting?
I'd be shitting myself.
Yeah,
I'd be like,
it's a bit full on.
I'd be low-key scared.
Really?
I'm all for that news. I think Henry Cavill is very underrated. Anyone who thinks he doesn't have acting chops needs to go watch like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Great flick.
I don't know if I've seen The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
It's also a Guy Ritchie film. It's kind of like a James Bond but comedy.
Oh, cool.
In a way, yeah. And it did really well, got really good reviews, but kind of bombed at the box office. And there was rumours to be like its own kind of Bond saga kind of thing. But
I liked his tiny little role in, was it Jack Reacher or the Mission Impossible? That was it.
Oh, Mission Impossible. Yeah.
Like locking his guns.
Yeah. He was really good in that. Now, this one's interesting. This one's actually filming in Sydney as we speak. Aaron Taylor-Johnson is being casted in a film called The Fall Guy by Universal, which is apparently based on an old TV show where he was a stunt double, but basically, and then like went missing in Hollywood and then got hired as like a hitman on the side.
Yeah, right.
So it sounds really interesting. I love Ryan Gosling, but Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I think we obviously spoke about him when we saw Bullet Train, where he plays Mandarin, and I'm all for him getting more 100%. Movies. I think he was in also The Kingsman, like prequel, earlier this year, but had like a non-existent role pretty much. But
really
I think
need him more as a leading man. Like
he has the chops.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it. There's a movie called Nocturnal Animals, which is actually directed by the fashion designer Tom Ford.
I think you've told me about
with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he plays like a creepy, like not kind of rapist, like on the like. It's hard to say, but I've never felt more uncomfortable watching an actor perform than in that movie.
Yeah, cool.
You know when you're watching someone, you're like, I fucking hate him, and we'll get back to that later when we review Sissy. But he's like that.
Yeah, cool.
This one's interesting. So I don't know. You've obviously heard, I presume, of the Broadway show called Wicked. They're making a 2-part movie of it, which always happens.
Why not?
Jeff Goldblum has been casted as the Wizard.
Oh, 100%. I don't even know how I've ever felt about Jeff Goldblum. I
don't think he's a great actor.
I can't tell if he's amazing or not, or is he just playing himself in every single thing he's in?
I've never watched a film and thought he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah,
he's just really likable. Like,
yeah, I think that's.
But he does it well.
He does. Yeah.
He does it well, and that's the thing. But it's an interesting casting. They've got a good cast. I think Ariana Grande is playing one of the witches, one of the main girls in it as well, which obviously she has some singing chops.
So
and
she's going to be following the musical kind of.
Yeah, she's done Broadway, so it's going to be pretty. And it's directed by the director of Crazy Rich Asians, which I know you're not the biggest fan of rom-coms, but that was actually really enjoyable.
I think I've seen that.
You probably have. It was pretty big. We would have been working at the movies at the time, I think.
That's probably why I've seen it.
Now, this is interesting. William Jackson Harper has been casted in a mystery role in the new Ant-Man Quantumania, which the trailer came out recently for that. I thought it looked really good. He's from the show called The Good Place, but there's a lot of rumors going around that he might be casted as Reed from like Fantastic Four.
Oh.
Which he actually, if you watch The Good Place, I actually think his personality is very
I've seen
on
some
the
of
nose
The Good
for
Place. That's the one where she spoilers kind of dies over and over again or whatever.
Yeah, and it's in between limbo of heaven. Yeah,
weird heaven hell kind of scenario.
It's actually a really good show, but I don't know what he is. There's a lot of rumors going around. He's been casted as Reed Richards, but then there's a lot of rumors going around he's been casted as a leader of a rebel outpost. But as soon as they get casted and it's a mystery role, it's
usually something key.
It's usually something key that they don't want to announce, because it's if it is Reed Richards, we're not going to announce that he's in the film kind of thing.
It's exciting though.
Good on him. He's really done only done TV shows, so it's obviously a bit of a step up for him. So I think he's a great actor. Keen to see him. This one's a little bit more sort of TV news, but we obviously discussed it last week that Henry Cavill is back as Superman, but he's actually pulled out of the Witcher season 4 onwards and being replaced by Liam Hemsworth, fellow Australian. I really want to know what your thoughts are on this, because there's a lot of rumours going around about certain things, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've heard some of the kind of rumours altogether, and I know that Henry himself is a massive nerd. And
he advocated for this role. He's he was a huge fan of the video games, the books. The rumor I've been reading, obviously he's probably been offered a massive bag as Superman, and let's be honest, that kind of role is something you need to probably dedicate a lot of time to. Obviously, you've got your workout regime that you do, but you're filming that kind of big budget film. If they're making Man of Steel 2, which I presume they would, it's a 7-8 month process, and Witcher, TV shows are usually longer than movies, generally speaking, especially Netflix ones and ones of this caliber. But the rumor going around is he came out and he dedicated himself. He's like, I'm going to stay there for the 7th season, which apparently it's 7 seasons that they're rumored. But then
following each book.
It came out recently that apparently the writers of the show hate the games and the original books and have really hated it and laughed about it. And Henry came out recently saying he was really not a fan of that, and that he's been advocating for not basically to be a stone wall of a character, to have the emotional side and all that side that's explored in the books. So it is interesting. I thought he was actually a good casting and he played him well, but to be honest, Liam Hemsworth, I actually in terms of the sheer size of Geralt, Henry's not really exactly Geralt's a pretty 6'4" skinny man, and Henry Cavill's built like a fucking wall. See, Liam Hemsworth
depends on the book and game. He's pretty fitting to some of it, but early stages.
I actually don't mind the casting of Liam Hemsworth, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm really kind of mixed, because I heard that he's very unhappy with kind of the direction it's going in and everything else, and he really wants it to stick true to pretty much the universe. And these directors and writers want to go in the story of kind of what Halo did with their spin-off series and just make something that doesn't make sense.
Dog shit. That show was dog
they
shit.
want to make something that doesn't make sense. They want to make their own canon and then say it's canon, and they want to create their own stories and change everything else altogether. And I can understand for pulling out of that when you're kind of like a passionate nerd, which he kind of is.
Yeah, I can understand being annoyed, but I presume it's probably a bit of both, to be honest. Like, he does have other commitments, and there's been rumours going around that he might be casted as Aegon in the Game of Thrones House of Dragon as like the older one. But there's also rumours that because Amazon have announced a Mass Effect series, Amazon Prime, that he's been rumoured as Commander Shepard, which I don't know about that casting. He's also
perfect.
It's similar, the physicality though, like it's a bit weird. Like Commander Shepard's not fucking built like that. Let's be real. I mean, he's got armor, who knows, but he's pretty slender in the show. But if at the end of the day, physicality wise, if they're a good actor and do the role well, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. But I presume he has a lot of commitments going on. So it is sad to see, because I did like him as it. I must admit, I wasn't the biggest fan of season 2. Like, I really enjoyed season 1. I thought there was a dip of quality in 2. I'm intrigued. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see season 3, because maybe that's just dog shit and that part of a reason.
Yeah, it is. Like,
season 3 hasn't come out.
No. It's in like the season 2 is
dipping quality.
It's kind of like filler to get you ready for like the rest of it, and there's like dramatic things that happen in season 3.
Yeah, I know that. I know the story. I was
based
just more
on the
meaning.
books. I
was just more meaning. If there was like, if it just they went astray and it wasn't a good show, and he signed on for 3 years originally. So, it's interesting.
I like the idea of Hemsworth in it. He's
I think he's a good actor and
nerd too.
I have heard that, but then I've heard things being like, oh, it's a PR stunt that he's not. But I presume I like both Hemsworths, to be honest. The next bit of this is going on the Marvel side of things. Now, I might absolutely butcher this name, but Yahya Abdul-Mateen has been hired as Wonder Man for Marvel. Wonder Man is essentially Superman, Marvel's version of Superman in a way. Now, I think it's originally a TV show that's getting made, but I must admit, I'm a big fan of this actor. Now, most recently, you probably have no idea who.
I know who Wonder Man is, yeah. Who's the actor?
He was in, he played Black Manta in Aquaman 1. He played, most recently, he was in Ambulance. He was the brother of like Jake Gyllenhaal's character. Although not the brother, but you know what I mean. He also played Morpheus in the most recent Matrix, which I did not like, but I did like him as an actor. I
actually really like him as an actor.
I'm a big fan, so I'm intrigued to see what they do. As I said, it's a TV show, so it'll probably link in at some point, but who knows? To be honest, I'm all for it. I like the casting. I don't know enough about Wonder Man to sit there and go, fuck, I hate the casting, but I just like him as an actor, and I'm keen to see him do a little bit more work. Now, the last bit of news, though, is pretty big, to be honest, in terms of movie, DC, but Peter Safran, who's pretty much a producer for all the Conjuring movies and created that universe, he has been hired, and along with James Gunn, who's the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, the most recent, The Suicide Squad, they've been hired as essentially the Kevin Feige of DC. So they've announced it's called DC Studios within Warner Bros. So it basically takes care of Warner's DC-based films, TV, live action, and animated. What are your overall thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I love James Gunn. I feel like with all the stuff that's gone on recently with Warner Bros. And DC kind of all together, it's good to see some positive take on anything for once. They've delivered pretty well, and obviously with the Peacemaker series too, James Gunn worked towards, wasn't it?
He directed the whole thing and wrote the whole thing.
Yeah. Look, I feel like it's some steps in some right directions.
For sure. I would tend to agree. I don't know what they're planning on doing with Henry Cavill coming back. Or obviously, they've got a few films already in the work, as we chatted on last week. But I'm a fan of it. I must admit, the Conjuring films, I'm not the biggest fan of. Oh, the first one was good, but obviously Peter Safran's more the DC producing side. That's apparently the rumour. James Gunn's going to do all the writing and all that side, and then Peter Safran's just going to do the producing. But I don't mind it. I think James Gunn's very talented. The only thing is obviously all of his films are very comedic, which are good. Like, I really enjoy all the Guardians films. I enjoyed the Suicide Squad, the Peacemaker show. The only thing is obviously, like, you know, when it comes to certain characters within the DC universe, they're probably not really comedic.
Better
So
suited
it's just
towards
yeah,
comedy, yeah.
it's just but obviously they're going to have writers and things like that for that. So really intrigued onto where they go from there. And I know they've asked Kevin Feige most recently at the Black Panther premiere, and I do tend to agree with him. He actually said that any dollar that DC makes isn't a dollar that Marvel loses. It's competition really. Like every time DC make a great film, Marvel have got to step up. So really intrigued. I'm all for it. But other than that, that's pretty much all for news. So we'll jump into some reviews and we'll just take a quick break. Izzy, so thanks for sticking around. I might quickly go from. We'll jump into our review of Pearl and Sissy, but might be easier to just get a couple out of the way.
Get yours ones.
So I've got two films that I want to recommend. I won't sort of go into depth on them, but The Stranger, which is an Australian film, which is now out on Netflix, starring Joe Edgerton and Sean Harris from the Mission Impossible film, which is based on. It's not sort of fiction, but it's based on a true story about a murder of a child that happened in Australia that was pretty heavily advertised. I can't remember the name, but you probably already
No idea.
Highly recommend that film. It wasn't the best film I've ever seen in any means, but just a good gripping tale, very unsettling. And I love Australian films are generally very difficult to watch. They're always brutal subject matters, but
always.
Highly recommend that. It's on Netflix. Go watch it. Next film was a film I saw recently, which is a French film called The Night of the 12th, which is similar setting. It's at the start of the film, it basically says, 800 murders a year in France and 20% of them don't ever get solved. And it was basically based on a murder where this woman was walking home and a guy they actually don't know, someone threw gasoline or alcohol on them and then burnt them alive to death. And it basically just goes through the police side of things and essentially interviewing all the ex-partners and things like that. And it's kind of just really unsettling. Obviously, you already know obviously it's never solved at the start of the film. They kind of say that, but highly recommend that as one as well. Definitely go see that.
Was that a foreign film?
Yeah, French-based film. So if you can get over the 2-inch subtitles, then it is a very good movie. And then we'll jump into Bros, which I did watch. I'll probably jump into a little bit more in depth in this one, but I actually found it quite amusing, I'll be honest. I don't know what I was really expecting, but I did there was definitely some laughs. I have some negatives. It was very by the books. Like it was very formulaic, romantic comedy kind of thing. Like it was just act 1, this happens, they meet each other. Act 2, there's some drama, tension, drama. Yeah. Act 3, fucking dandy, But no, I did find enjoyment in it. And the only thing is the main character is also very unlikable, who's Billy Eichner. He plays Billy in the movie as well. I don't know if anyone doesn't like him in real life as well, but no idea. I'm sort of out of that sort of SNL or American comedy scene. So I actually did find, enjoyment in it. The only thing I would say is obviously I'm not its target audience, and it does kind of alienate that part of it a bit as well. Like it definitely made jokes and definitely made jokes and comments about obviously like like people in the past that have been gay or made like, gay jokes, not the jokes that are gay, but like jokes about gay people or things like that, which I didn't quite understand. But to be fairness, I'm not going to give it a negative for that. It's just kind of like, obviously that's its target audience, but I did find enjoyment in it. Obviously, definitely one of the better romantic comedies I've seen, to be fair. None of them are that great, but cool. In a while it's definitely funny. You won't watch. No, but I did recommend it, but I would recommend it. Definitely some laughs. I might jump into, other than that, that's kind of 3 films off the top. So other than that, we'll jump into a review of a film we just watched, which was Sissy, which is an Australian film that's kind of based on a girl who reconnects with her friend of the past, and it kind of goes into it's a horror film in a way, or kind of really just fucked up. So what were your thoughts on the film? I know we just spoke about how fucked Australian films can
Yeah,
be.
they always follow usually some touchy subjects or some on the nose kind of topics. And for me, this movie was good in the aspect of I think it achieved what it was trying to do and the story that it wanted to tell. And I thought the story is very cohesive, being a prequel to the movie X2. As in, I thought,
This is Sissy we're reviewing.
oh God, Jesus. Doing some of the wrong thing. Wowee. Anyway, scrap that.
Funnily enough, everything you said worked well, and I was sitting here, I'm like, yep. And then you just said it worked as a prequel. I was like, hang on a
You
second.
know,
what?
I was actually talking about in my head to
Sissy. Yeah, I know,
and
I
then
can
my
tell.
mind
And
just
then, yeah.
changed.
Oh,
My
yeah.
mind just
Anyway.
changed. Anyway, movie Sissy, sorry. Good film. Told the exact same story as that, like what it wanted to do, and it had aspects similar to Bodies. I don't know why I added in the other part because I was about to say Bodies.
Probably
But
just
it
mind
had
blanked it.
similar aspects in that of where it was kind of like touching on the kind of like negative like impact modern society and that we all need like verification from people that we don't even know or
Validation,
or people we don't even know or care about. And that's actually more important than anything. It's more important to be accepted and liked and loved or what's perceived to be that than actually trying to deal with the internal problems and struggles of real day life and trauma and everything in between. And she's never gone, she obviously suffers this kind of trauma, but she never goes for anyone, any help or anything like that. But then she starts kind of like lecturing people on her experience and how they can deal with that, even though she hasn't. So I feel like for me, extremely triggering. But the entire film did exactly what it needed to do. And it told a story of kind of like modern society and that people people want validation more than they do nearly anything else to deal with something. It's more important to them. And every time she'd get some validation, she got like a rush of endorphins and she was happy. And
and it visibly showed like, pupils dilating.
Yeah, look, good movie. I really enjoyed it.
I kind of feel a bit into two sort of straight, two different ways here. I don't think it's a great movie. Like it's you can tell it's low budget in a way. You can tell but it's done well in what it's trying to do. I tend to agree. I don't think it's a film to ring home about, but everything it did well. Like it's a sort of more in-depth look of dealing with, as you said, trauma, kind of an on-the-nose look at society nowadays and influences cancel culture and things like that. But it was definitely an interesting movie. It was kind of, I actually said this to Daniel when watching it. Australian films are very hard to watch because it's kind of like a bit, what's the word? It kind of just feels a bit uncomfortable because we're so used to obviously consuming media that's, from US, UK, foreign films of it, like where you don't hear Australian accents much at all in films, where it's kind of just a bit like of a shock. So it always just feels weird. But taking that away, I don't know why I even said that, but taking that away, definitely things to enjoy here. I don't know if I can like sit here and recommend it because it's not like I thought it was okay. It's just like it's obviously dealing with trauma, bullying. It's got a look at bullying, trauma, all those things I said. Albeit that it's a very full on look at what trauma can do. It's like Halloween Ends where we saw that, and
about to make that
obviously
comparison.
Smile also interestingly dealt with trauma, but it was more like a supernatural look of it, and it was a bit like more far-fetched. Whereas this is like, if you have if you've been bullied, and same with Halloween, it's been bullied, have a bit of trauma, you might fucking kill someone kind of thing. Like, and it's just like it's a very full-on look at it. So it's just kind of a bit weird, but it is a good film by all means, but it's also a good Australian film. Films are very, very hit and miss. We've had some absolute mares previously. But yeah, can't probably sit here and recommend it. I think it does come out this week in Australian cinemas. I'm not sure where else it comes out, to be fair, because usually they're not sort of the highest distributed movies in the world. So other than that, we might take a quick break and we'll probably go in a bit more into depth in our review of Pearl, which is starring Mia Goth and T West, which is a prequel.
Yep.
Prequel to the movie X. So we'll take a quick break and we'll jump into that. Easy. So we'll jump into our review of X, which we just spoke about. Sorry about the barking dog. But so prequel to obviously the 2022 horror film called X, which was essentially about a group of adult porn stars going into a remote cabin and making an 80s porn film with a horror film. This is a prequel to that. So we obviously just kind of recently watched it. What were your thoughts? To give you a bit of backstory, we did both enjoy X, which we obviously both said earlier.
Yep.
What were your thoughts on this?
Well, going back to my original view on the previous movie, it did exactly what it needed to do, and also was very cohesive to its previous film. So all the things that happened in X, even the stuff that was like environmental that you didn't think had any impact, were all relevant. You know, in the movie X, they had like the vehicle that was in like the lake or whatever, and while the old guy's trying to hunt around pretty much for him or whatever, that they showed like the origin of that. And I thought it was just like pointless, but they showed like how it all began and how everything rolled over between it all. I loved the main actress,
Mia Goth.
Yeah, Mia Goth as a
bit of a scream queen.
Yeah, she was, I thought, did really well in her role, and I thought she was really good in both roles throughout both of those films. I enjoyed it. Kind of actually head in a direction that I wasn't sure it was going to head in. Like I expected it to end up messed up because that's what X was, and you know when it was starting to have that many comparisons.
Yeah, like it was X was a really interesting, good film, and then kind of it reached a point where it was just starting to get really fucked and uncomfortable. Yeah.
And I thought she was going to have like some kind of origin story of going through all these things, but she's just mental. And I thought she played that well. And like if I was any of those other people or even the projectionist dude, I'm like, dude, no, like God, get the hell out of there. I'd start running. I'd smack her out. Like it's like she is terrifying. And I thought that's what actually made her great in that. I'm not sure inherently what the overall story was, except really identifying that she was a psychopath. But look, I enjoyed the film overall.
Yeah, I think it's really, you can't it's difficult to watch this film as a solo film. I think you really need to see X, to be honest.
I think first, you do.
Or first or even second. I think seeing it first, actually, I would tend to, first probably more so, but like you could either watch it either way. But I think overall, I don't necessarily sit here and see this as like a solo film. I think a lot of the payoff is in X, and I know they're making actually a third film of the thing called Maxine, which is coming out, which is about her trying to be a film star, but not the character from this, but Mia Goth's character from X. So for anyone who doesn't know, she plays the main character in X, also the main old lady in X, and that lady ended up being the lady in this film who was young at the time. So a bit confusing, but she was fantastic in this film. All jokes aside, like she was unbelievable, Mia Goth. If it wasn't such a stacked year for awards, I'd genuinely sit here and say like she could be vying for nominations.
She played her role great.
There's a certain scene towards the end where she pretty much gives a probably 5 to 10 minute monologue, not cut, and it's just her talking the whole time, and it's unbelievable the work she did there, which you don't really see in horror films or like films like this caliber, that you don't really tend to see films with great performances if we're being real. But no, I really enjoyed it, and as I said, it's probably definitely a 2-part playoff because I tend to agree a lot of the things in this film you tend to see come to a close or come to like a closure in X, which I wholeheartedly agree. Like you see the car, obviously the alligator situation, even the bodies under the house, which you see in X when Jenna Ortega's character goes down in the house and you see all the bodies there. You see that situation unfold, and it's really, really well done, to be honest. Like I sit here and I think realistically T West has probably written both films back to back and kind of rather than kind of write, and then obviously they've only come out within like a 6-month period as well. So I presume they were directed and made at the same time, but I thought it was really well done. You don't tend to see things like this done, and it's very much almost like you can see the passion and love put into it. It's very much made like a 20s movie with all the
Yeah.
film direction style,
The
the
audio, the
writing,
script writing, and everything like that.
The score was fantastic as well. But no, I wouldn't sit here and say it's, in the top 10 films of the year for me or my favorite or best, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought it was a better movie than X.
Yeah, definitely.
X kind of played a little bit more into the horror tropes. This is very much more, even though it's not really a horror at all, but it's a bit more fucked up. But it's very much like a character study, which
it's a good way to express
just kind of pays off, as I said, pays off with X is the main thing. So, no, I definitely recommend it, and I think it's a great film. I'm not exactly sure when it comes out into Australian cinemas. We were lucky to see this early.
Have they announced any release on like Maxine when the sequel's supposed to come out, or is it just in
Later
the works?
this year, I think.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So-
like it's all been made at the same time. So what happened is,
a good idea.
what happened is Pearl was shown at a film festival. I'm not exactly sure what, but a third film just days before the release of Pearl. Maxine was announced, which, for anyone, it follows Maxine after the events of X, where she's the only survivor, and she sets out to make it as an actress in the 1980s. And the one thing I was actually going to say is it makes a lot of sense as well. You see the old lady as a character in X go, I resonate with you. You're like me. You want to be an actress. And it just gives a lot of backstory, and I think it makes X a better film as well.
I agree.
Which
I
is,
agree completely.
Yeah,
Poor Howard.
Which is interesting because I actually say the best part, the main thing about prequels or sequels is when they succeed, it makes the predecessor or the movie after a better movie, and I think that's the main thing. And I think this succeeds 110%. So, highly recommend it. Other than that, I don't really have too much to touch on. Do you sort of?
Nah, not really. Anything extra. It's a good movie, and you're right. The fact that it was so like cohesive between the two films definitely made X a better film in general.
Yeah. Fair play.
You talk about like that 5 to 7 to 10 minute monologue or whatever she did, where it was the camera didn't change from her the whole time.
Yeah, it was a one shot.
Story.
Yeah,
it was.
It was riveting. I couldn't lock my eye. Couldn't really look away.
I also love the one when she was like in the barn, like yelling, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Like with that, with the projectionist, or whatever.
Oh yeah, you don't love me.
Like that whole thing was like, I was like, okay, this is weird now. This is uncomfortable, and then it was like terrifying. I'm like, that was fucking good. Anyway, great film. Definitely go watch
very
it.
good performance.
Go watch both.
Yes, yeah. Other than that, I don't really have too much to touch on. Next week we'll be covering the Weird Al Yankovic movie starring Daniel Radcliffe, and I think a Florence Pugh movie as well called Wonder. I can't remember what it's called. It's the one where she looks after kids who haven't eaten, which was a book written by the same woman who wrote Room, which was with Brie Larson, where she was locked in a room with her kid.
I don't know if I've actually seen it.
Fantastic movie. But no, it came out a while ago, like 2014 or so. But other than that, that's all we have sort of time for this week. So we'll cut it off there. But other than that, you can obviously catch us on all podcasting platforms and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Visual Aspect on YouTube. But other than that, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.